first few days of retreat are often the more difficult days. I find this to be pretty accurate among people who are new to retreat or even once they have some experience, still tends to be the case. And I think there are a few reasons for that. One is that we're transitioning from our usual day to day way of functioning, which is pretty wrought with a lot of thought and identification with thought and busyness and sometimes reactivity. So this is the world we come from, and then we drop ourselves into this space where we're being very quiet. We're putting away distractions and just sitting with our own experience. And as I mentioned, one of the immediate things we notice is a lot of thoughts. And this tends to stick around a few days, may subside here and there, but over time it will settle. Uh, and then as the mind calms, and this sort of increase in the frequency or just the noticing of thoughts corresponds with the mind calming down. It is calming down. The body mind, the whole system is calming down. And what correlates with that is we start to release repressed material, repressed emotions up into consciousness. So it's just essentially an automatic process. It's nothing you choose to do or have to do. It's just going to happen. And this can be surprising if you're new to this space. Uh, i- Parts of ourselves that we may not touch into very frequently, or have been actively avoiding for years, or all everything in between. But un uh, waveringly, we're gonna experience some emotion during retreat. Sometimes these emotional experiences are clearly associated with a narrative, with a certain event or events in our lives. Other times they're just seemingly random, don't really know what they're related to, where they came from, what they mean, but they're there. So probably 90% of the value of this talk is just to tell you that this is normal. There's nothing really that you need to do about it ultimately. Just show up the best you can, feel what's there to feel, and try not to distract to the degree that's possible, and become curious about the mechanism of distraction. What is it you're trying to do to get away from those sensations, feelings, etc.? What are the tendencies? You might feel a baseline restlessness. You may notice the mind's strategies trying to drift off, be somewhere else, fantasize, strategize, try to fix. You may notice physical distractions. Uh, it's good to just start to recognize what we habitually do in response to these emotions, and then uh, just just touch in, just feel what's there to feel. As I mentioned before, finding it in the body is helpful. Finding the physical correlation in your sense field is valuable and helpful. And of course, being alert to any thoughts we have around this experience is really helpful, because what's available in this space that's not always available in day-to-day life, or not as available, is the ability to recognize hidden beliefs, which will often come in the form of a thought arising just naturally when we're feeling intense experiences or just uncommon experiences. We'll notice the thoughts that say whatever they say about our ability to handle this, or what this means, or what this means about me. And simply noticing these beliefs is actually really beneficial. When we notice the beliefs, one of the the benefits of that is the reactivity around thoughts, the reactivity around beliefs, the reactivity around emotions starts to subside, becomes less prominent. The more gross reactivity that's trying to, it's not really trying, but tends to lead us toward distraction and so forth, uh, is usually underpinned by this kind of restlessness, this energetic restlessness. And you'll notice that to some degree. And the more experience you have here, the more you'll realize that really that restlessness is what's sort of fueling reactivity, fueling fueling the tendency to avoid, fueling the tendency to use a coping mechanism or an avoidant strategy or a distraction. It's really there's just this underlying restlessness. When we get into touch with the restlessness, the same strategies or approaches are helpful. Feel it. Restlessness may be a little harder to pin down as far as where it is in the body. It might feel like it's moving through the body quickly. It may feel like no particular location, but the body just feels animated. It wants to move around, or it may not even correlate to physical movement. There's just something feeling very restless inside. So touching into that massive sensation is helpful, even if it's not clear where it is or uh, can't like pin down a specific location. Similarly, noticing thoughts and or beliefs in association with that restlessness can be really helpful. The deeper we go in this way, the more experience close we get, the more I find that the thoughts are easier to overlook. They're quieter. They're more maybe fundamental. They may even feel younger. They may feel like a younger developmental voice, something like a 5 year old, your 5 year old said or would say, or impression it had, or even I found these almost pre-verbal tendencies of a child underneath that just may say something like, I want to get away from this, or no, or something like that. So it can be helpful to recognize, even if they're not fully formed thoughts or beliefs, just to notice what they are in association with restlessness, that physical experience of restlessness. And with restlessness specifically, once we've really recognized it as such, once we know what that actually is instinctually and directly, there's really not much more to do. It will sort itself out. Restlessness, restlessness will calm down on its own, but it can take some time. Uh, and what will allow it to wind itself down, what will allow it to allow that momentum to slow down is in part uh, recognizing those little or deeply rooted fundamental beliefs that are associated with the restlessness. Um, that helps. So yeah, it's still the both. It's really recognizing it as such in direct experience, noticing what it is, realizing that's kind of the animating force for the emotion body and the really its life force, this restlessness. But it's also its life force directed through filters that feel like personal filters. It's life force directed through the energetic body or the energetic being. And so it feels a certain way. It feels, or it can feel like as if we have an oppositional experience in relation to it. So there's something about it that feels uncomfortable, certainly at first. And the discomfort is really just the inflection of, uh, it's the inflection of that energy as it moves through the personal, the seeming separate one that feels like it's in discord with its environment. It feels like it's sometimes in opposition to its environment, but certainly feels separate from its environment. And that's the feeling of discomfort in association with restlessness. When you first come into contact with restlessness, it may feel extremely uncomfortable. Sometimes I've said it's almost as if you could distill down the raw experience of discomfort and put it in a jar and just directly taste it. It would taste like that. That's when we first come into contact with it, uh, and then you see why there are these emotional reactions, and then more external reactions and thoughts and distractions that are all seemingly trying to actually take us away from it, trying to pull us away, turn our attention away, and then build an identity, and then use that identity to go out into the world and convince itself that if it fixes things the way it can fix everything and get things the way it wants them to be, then it'll be happy. But all of that is a reaction formation. All of that is second and third, fourth step down the line. When we get right to the root of it, we just feel this restlessness, this energetic restlessness, which is rather energetic. It's a powerful energy. It's a life force, and it's being inflected through this sense of some kind of ability to separate, to pull back into maybe an inner world, or to pull back from experience. There's a guy named John Sherman. He has some videos on YouTube. I think he might have passed. I'm not really sure on that, but he has some videos on YouTube, and he has a very simple way of pointing, but his clarity is pretty is there, and it's just precise. I like the way he says some things. One of the things I really like how he describes is he says that the probably even before there's a sense of a structured self, there's a feeling of reaction to the all of the intensity of being alive, like the light and sound and cold, and that a baby feels, or a toddler feels, or an infant feels, and its reaction is just to kind of pull back from it and just say no, or just like try to mitigate it, try to do something about it. That that's that prompting that is underlying that sense of a structured self, and perhaps it's an effect of the complexity of consciousness that allows us to even do that at all. But who knows? But it feels like that energetic restlessness when you really get close to it. So you may or may not touch in directly to that restlessness that I'm talking about in this retreat. But if you do, you'll know it. So the as I mentioned, the next sort of step when the thoughts that have been spun up through removing our distractions and so forth tend to start to calm, and the mind and body calms. The next step is emotion. Emotions tend to just kind of come up out of nowhere. And it can be anything, any kind of emotion. And often when we're not used to that, our initial reaction is just kind of similar. It's like, no, I'm not really interested in this. When will it end? How bad is this going to be? How long will I have to feel this until the next thing happens? When do I get the next bliss hit, or deep meditation where I feel free? So all of these reactions are normal to emotion when it, especially when it's unexpected. If we don't know what it is, it's been repressed, it's been pushed away. So give yourself the latitude and the space to just process however you need to, and recognize that there is going to be a layer of um, kind of resistance, a layer of something that says, I'd rather not feel this, or I don't want this. And even stopping there is helpful, settling in a little bit to the resistance and just recognizing how it feels. How does it feel to experience resistance to your experience? Where do you feel it in the body? Where does the resistance accumulate? It may not. It may feel like a generalized experience, but it may feel like a very specific spot, a place you hold that kind of resistance in the body. And if you find that, that's really good. It's a good discovery because it gives you a sort of location to drop attention into. Now, some people and/or at some points along this path for many people, there will be a kind of really contracted place of sort of ball of resistance. I definitely had this. It can be anywhere, but it's often in the gut, chest, maybe in the neck or throat. And it's one of those things that can really feel stuck when you're on a retreat, even with all the meditation and lack of distraction. It can still really feel like it's not moving, not going anywhere. It feels contracted, stuck, um, heavy. And you may notice a lot of interpretation around it that says no, or I don't want this. Excuse me. Or I don't want this, or how do I get rid of this, or how do I heal this, or whatever it is. Very common. If this is the case, if you have this experience of a contracted space, a center, a heavy, dense center, uh, I want to give you a few suggestions on what you may be able to do to work with this. But I would say, first of all, be patient. It didn't form overnight. It's not new to this retreat. It's been there. So uh, we don't have to expect it to go away anytime soon, or even at this retreat. It can still be here. It's okay for it to be here. And sometimes just talking to it and telling it, like, you have my attention. It's okay for you to be here. You have permission to be in this body. I give you space to be. That can be helpful. So just having an overall orientation of acceptance, of nurturing, of kindness, and of curiosity. Because what else do you have to do? If that's what's here, then that's what's here to experience. That is the entry point. So just approaching it with a kind of uh, neutrality, equanimity, giving it permission to be here is helpful. And that may be 90% of it for you. If you really can feel into what that is like, just that unbinding from the opposition to it, just that releasing of that tendency to say no to it, may feel really good. It may feel like the place to be and to rest, just to rest in that acceptance. That may work really well. Rest in the acceptance of that which is here. It's been here a long time, but I've been looking away from it. I've been avoiding it. I've been running away from it. And all of a sudden, it just feels so good to just say, you can be here. It's okay. I've been practicing this expanded experience of consciousness. Similarly, I can give this experience an expansion or a space of noticing or a space of acceptance and just allow it to be exactly what it is. So that's the kind of framework for the other suggestions I'll give you. So the other suggestions, uh, and again, this framework, I would sit with that for a while. Really, like let that clarify what that actually is to have a relationship of neutrality with this experience, right? Then these other sort of things you can try may be helpful. Uh, One is to notice that you may have a sense of a perspective of your attention, like your attention is directed from somewhere. Might feel from up here, like in your head or in your eyes, in your mind, maybe as if the attention is directed onto the contracted experience or the center or the density or whatever. If it has that feel to it, that's not a bad thing. Uh, it gives you an opportunity to try something slightly different. See if you can notice it from the inside of it, almost as if it's the contraction or the contracted sensation or space, almost as if it's the one doing the looking or it's the one that's aware, or as if awareness is radiating from it. So ways to do that. One is just try directly. Just see, can I experience this from itself? And you might notice it's simply possible without much more effort. And you might find that enjoyable. You might find that kind of like a relief, what you've wanted to do for a long time, just haven't been able to or hadn't thought of. But if that feels opaque or doesn't seem to work, you can try to see if you can allow that attention center, if your attention center feels like it's up here in the head, behind the eyes, wherever, see if you can just allow that attention center to slowly slide down into it, like melted butter or golden liquid or honey. Sometimes imagining these things can be helpful. Just slowly moving down until it's sort of covering that contraction and then kind of penetrating it, soaking into it. You may notice that it almost feels as if the attention or awareness or energy, let's say, is just radiating outward from it, like it is the center of attention now, rather than the head being the center of attention. And this can open up a heart space. It can open up the heart chakra. May not happen for anyone specifically here in this retreat, but anyone who's had that happen knows how it feels. It's pretty unmistakable. So letting the energetics of being alive radiate out from that area that we've been closed off, that we've been closing off without even knowing it, just through habit, through inheritance. Hopefully, everyone's doing this along with me as I speak about it. That's the idea. You may, it may help to put your hand on it. It may not, but if you feel a something, put your hand on it. See if you can feel it radiating into your hand and through your hand. And you may even feel it radiating through your hand and through the centers in the room of everyone doing it. We're reattuning ourselves to the nature of energy, how it moves, how it interacts with itself, because it only finds itself in various forms. Sometimes they're stuck forms, sometimes they're free forms, sometimes they're dense, contracted forms, sometimes they're vastly expanded forms, but it's all essentially energy. And as that energy uh, moves outward from the heart space or from any center here, see what else it brings with it. What does it take with it? To find and feel radiant energy coming forth from somewhere in the body. Does that deplete the energy, or does it seem to allow more energy to radiate from the body outward, from the feet, legs, hands, shoulders, head? There's no right or wrong answer. Whatever's happening for you is the right answer. And how is that energy interacting with the energy in the room? Not just from the humans, but the walls, the floor, the sky, the light? Is it received? Is it seamless with all of the energy in the room? Is it buzzing, alive, fresh, charged, calm? If it seems too abstract, uh, feel into the body, anywhere in the body or in the body center that we're talking about, and just notice the sensations there. And then just follow them outward to what feels like the edge of the body, like the skin. That's kind of what we're doing with the hand as well. You may notice it move into the hand, but just drop your attention right into that apparent body edge. Is there really an edge there in the sensations? Is there really an edge there in the energetics of it? Or is it wide open, like wide open? For some, it might feel like light, or it might be light, not visual light, but it may be a radiant light. And I think one key here is not to try to direct it. We're not trying to direct light in some way. Maybe there's a value to that in other settings to direct light towards someone or whatever, but we're not trying to direct this. We're allowing it to move how it moves naturally because we've actually been directing it into a contracted space without realizing it. So we're allowing it to move very naturally. May make your body move. Sometimes that happens, and that's okay too. And we just give it permission to move however it moves, up and down the arms or legs, through the seat, into or out of the head, through the sounds, into the earth, into the cosmos. You may notice spaces in the body that become almost illuminated with this. Maybe your mouth, teeth, jaw, behind the eyes, forehead, back of the head. Just notice these spaces and notice they are that energy. So we've simply released the energy into the field of the body. That's all this is. Instead of habitually contracting it into something that we use to keep a polarity going, primarily in the mind, thoughts, beliefs, stories, narratives. That's all we've done with this practice is just acknowledge that that energy can release itself into the body and then beyond the body, and it knows how to move, and it knows what to do, and it doesn't need management, and it's radiant, energetic, clear. Now, keeping our attention with this energetic I'll call it the energetic body for now, which can include the entire room, all the bodies in the room, the light, the ceiling, the walls, the pillars, all thought, concepts, past, future, may include the sky, the entire planet, entire solar system, entire galaxy, all of physicality, and all of the energy in the universe. It may include all of that. It does. Uh, but however it's perceived, however it's moving at this moment for you is just right. And from that, without leaving that, because you don't leave that, you can't leave that, notice the soundscape. Is that soundscape inside or outside the body, the energetic body? Is there actually a boundary? Or is the energy, the energetics, the energetic body, none other than the sound? Every sound. So in this way, we see that sound is also energy. Free, unhindered, uncaused, unsupported, just there. Just the sound and just that direct experience of the energetic body. One, seamless. It may feel like they're intermingling or it may feel totally seamless. Either way is perfect. And we're used to directing our attention in specific ways. But when the energetics are noticed in a very uh, unobstructed way like this, you'll notice, or you can notice, attention is totally dissolved into it. There's nothing to direct. The energetic body is seamless with attention, seamless with awareness. The awareness of the energetic body is the energetic body. The awareness of the sound is the sound. The awareness of the thoughts is thought, is the consciousness. No separation. Now, if you really want to hit it out of the park, you start to look into the visual display, the field. And that same energetic um, recognition that we started with